Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I hope that you are having an amazing night. I am Haley Gray. I'm the group owner and the founder of the Women's Entrepreneur Network, which means I have grown a group from 0 to over 73,000 members organically with no paid ads. I did about $150 in ads about almost 6 years ago. Quickly found out that it's not a great way to build a group. I wanted to talk tonight about why people's social media sucks, the big one, and what you should be doing perhaps instead to get better results on your social media. Because I manage a lot of social media accounts through my business, through Fiercely Marketing, and I work a lot with mentoring and coaching people on how to grow their businesses using social media. I hear it all the time, all day long. Raise your hands if you've heard your friends or if you've said, my social media is dead, right? And the reality for most of us is that our pages, our business pages, by and large, are pretty dead. Our Facebook groups, probably 50 to 70% of them are deceased, dead on arrival. And unfortunately, this is typical. It is so common that your social media is sucky. And Charlene, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for your kind words. And, I've done it. I've been there. I've gone through this. I will tell you, when I am being a lazy brat, my social media suffers and it sucks. And my interaction goes to zero. When I start paying attention and doing what I know I need to do, which I'm going to explain to you here in a few minutes, trust me, I'm going to give you lots of juicy details. Then what happens is my social media perks right back up. And so I can kind of turn it on and turn it off and know exactly what we're doing. And in fact, lately we've been growing social media for clients and getting what I call near viral results. So we're not doing paid ads. We're doing strictly organic reach on Facebook pages. So the first thing you've got to know when you're doing social media for people is that people come onto social media to be social. They don't come on to social media to be sold to. And I'm going to share a quick screen here. And what you're going to find really interesting, and this is a client's account on Facebook. This is their Facebook page. And this is the kind of results we're getting in a month right now. So what did we do to change the trajectory of this client's social media? I'm going to be super transparent. And this is stuff you can contact me and hire us to do. It is not fast. It is not hard, but it is certainly not fast. And it requires hours of work here. So what we're doing is we're researching our audience. The number one reason that a lot of people's social media really sucks is that we don't know who our audience is. So we don't message and we don't target our messaging in a way that targets our audience and hits them in the feels or hits them in a nerve. And a lot of times what we can do is we may do things that get people's attention, but it may not always be the right kind of attention. One of the things that Meg and I have joked about over time is, it would be really funny if she did crafts while, taking shots. And you see how quickly that one will go circling right down the drain. It would be hilarious. It would get her lots of views on YouTube, but probably not establish her brand, right? So when we're working on our social media, we need to be aware of who we're talking to and is this sucker on brand or not? And she says, guilty. I need to define my audience. So, it's it's a thing, right? When we're not totally paying attention to our social media, it turns into a hot mess. And right, so much fun, but not good for branding, right? And I do things all the time that I recognize it is so much fun, but not necessarily the best thing for branding. And hey, Andrea, good to see you. Thank you. So late night with Haley Gray, right? We're going to be talking about how to fix your social media. So do your research on your audience. What does your audience want? What does your audience need? How are you communicating with your audience? That is kind of the first and foremost thing that we want to address. And Andrea, this is a problem that a lot of people have. I'm not getting the kind of engagement on my lives because the algorithms constantly are changing. So one of the things that you have to do is encourage people to engage with you. And if you're pre-announcing, if you're telling people when you're going live, if you go live consistently at the same time, that will help your engagement. Also, your title on your posts has to be sticky. Has to be. Your social media has to be sticky. So it has to be, on the one hand, it has to be on brand. And on the other hand, your social media has to invoke some sort of a reaction in people. It can't be boring. So tonight I'm talking about, so your social media sucks. Oh, well, maybe that's going to get a little bit more attention than, oh, let me show you how to fix your social media. So pay attention to what you're writing, how you're writing. Pictures are, worth 1,000 words. We are, really, focusing on consistency. And one of the things with social media is being super consistent. People know that Haley goes live at 10 p.m. every night. I went a couple of minutes late tonight, and I'll give you guys a hint. I alternate my times just a little bit around the 10 p.m. mark, but I try to not be super, super consistent because I got put in Facebook jail last year for being overly consistent because I was going live at exactly 10 p.m. on the dot, and I did it enough times in a row that I ended up in Facebook jail. But my audience knows that I go live at 10 p.m. every night. The reason I go live at 10 p.m. every night is because it's highly, highly predictable. And I do it because my kids are in bed and, well, they're not really in bed anymore because they're teenagers. But, we're done with dinner. I'm done with most of my evening meetings. It's an easy, convenient time that I can block off on my calendar. It has absolutely very little to do with the fact that it's convenient for my audience. But I've trained my audience that I go live at 10 p.m. and I think I put a lot of people to sleep at night. I don't know if that's the droning of my voice or it's such a sweet, lulling voice or what, but I've been told that there are people who, listen to me at a set time and they know that when Haley goes live, it's time to go to bed. And you don't have a good time. It changes a lot with your 4 kids, right? And Andrea, that's why I do evenings, because I have 4 kids. You guys have seen me going live in this group in Women's Entrepreneur Network. It is such a thing. I've got 4 kids. They're 22, 20, 18, and 14. Trust me, my life is batshit crazy. I have one in college, one about to be in college, one about to graduate from high school, one that's kind of here, kind of not because he's in boarding school. And then I have my oldest who's been in and out of the hospital for the last 5.5 years. We're actually celebrating the longest period of time that she's been out of the hospital, which has been 3 months in the last 5.5 years right now. So I get you on, inconsistency and not having energy at night. And it really depends, right? So I've made myself find a time and stick to it. And it doesn't have to be every day. It could be once a week at a set time and make it your golden hour that you go live. Consistency is important. Pre-announcing is important. Is it easy? No. Do I always have energy at night? No. Sometimes it really, really sucks and I have to psych myself up for it. And sometimes I will occasionally skip a night, but I try to be super consistent. The other thing you want to make sure with your social media, it has got to be super duper sticky. You've got to hit an emotional appeal with people. You've got to hit something that's not something everybody else and their cousin is doing. I have a turtle who shares an office with me. I post turtle pictures on my personal profile. I let people get to know me. Today I was posting pictures of my seals, my light up seals that are on the front porch that are currently having their they have headbands, and we swapped them out. This is today's accoutrements. They are wearing, yes, folks, Yoda ears. So how do I find so many things to talk about? I make a list, and as things occur to me, I keep adding to that list. This is a really, really good question. How do I keep going live every single night? I have a narrow range of topics that I tend to talk about. I talk about social media. I talk about search engine optimization. I talk about ads. I talk about marketing strategy. There is actually a relatively finite number of topics in there, but there's also a lot of very subtle kinds of things that we can talk about. So I split things up. I don't always go live for super long. Sometimes I'm only going live for 5 to 10 minutes. And sometimes I go live for longer, depending on how much interaction I'm getting. So that's a really, really good point. How do you find things to post about? Now, one of the things that you've got to remember is that just because you talked about it 6 months ago doesn't mean that you can't redo the topic or revisit again. Facebook's algorithms change constantly. Life changes constantly. Lord knows in the last 14 months since all the COVID stuff started, if you're any kind of a coach, chances are your clients' lives have been torn up one side, down the other, and flipped around the other which way. So I find that I'm really bad at random stuff, and I only find it easy to go live when I'm launching or selling something. So here's the point. You're always launching. You should always be selling. It should always be leading to people into your funnel somehow, some way. One of the things that I have, Andrea, that I have made my social media a lot easier, my emails a lot easier. My team is actually very much growing into this aspect. I have a spreadsheet that covers the entirety of this year, and we've already started scheduling stuff into next year. So we know, we know 12 to 24 months out what we're scheduling. We know when summits are coming. We know when things are coming. So everything feeds into those events. I also, because we do digital marketing, I'm always looking for digital marketing clients. So if I'm teaching, but I don't know if I can just go on live and talk, it's weird. Yeah, come up with 5 to 10 talking points for every single live that you're going to do. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And I promise it does get easier. And, if since we've been connected for a while, you know that I'm being honest when I say, when I first started doing this, it was a lot harder than it is to do it now. And the more you do lives, just do it once a week at a consistent time and tell people what you're going to do, the better it's going to be, the easier it's going to get. I had, and you'll probably remember this, people that have been watching my lives for a long time remember that may actually have noticed that I flipped my office around 4 times since I started doing lives. And I used to have my youngest son, who's now 14, so he would have been 8 when we first started this, who took a lot of delight in throwing things at me. And that was actually part of the comedic relief of doing Facebook Lives. Nowadays, I just have cats who jump up behind me and eat, cat treats at random intervals. So you never know what you're going to get. But your social media's got to relate to people. You've got to relate to people. I sometimes am here in my pajamas doing lives. I'm actually in my PJs at the moment. Y'all will be happy to know. But I showed up. Yeah. And way more comfortable than you were before. Yeah, when you're petrified of at least you go live. I was petrified when I first started going live. And lives are just a tiny portion of my engagement strategy on social media. It is just a tiny portion, but lives get a lot of engagement on video. Yeah. Meg says, I flipped my office to avoid the kid and family sudden appearances. Yeah, I had to do it twice. Actually, 3 times. 3 of the flips were to, the first 2 flips were to avoid the kids walking behind me this way. And then the other thing they would do is they would hang in the doorway while I was doing it, and then they would throw things at me. And then I flipped it this way, and then I had the problem with the backlighting because I have 2 huge windows over here. So I had a lot of issues with backlighting, and I had a screen and all that kind of fun stuff. So I eventually took the mirror off of the wall behind me and renovated this room slightly. So yeah, your daughter was trashing your bedroom on your live tonight. And you know what, honestly, Andrea, that is something that people really, really relate to. Being real, being realistic is important. I've shared a lot of my story the last few years. Some people, you know, have heard me talk about my oldest daughter and going through all of the psychiatric issues we've had and all of the traumatic brain injury issues and all the hospitalizations and stuff. And we've been pretty frank about it. And just sharing, you know, all the craziness going on with kids. You feel like you sound stupid. If it's weird if you don't have engagement, get like 1, maybe 2 people coming off, on and off, and you get in your head. You know, Andrea, there are days where I have like nobody comment when I'm doing a live, like nothing. And part of the way you deal with that is that you comment and you talk to people and you engage with them beforehand and you say, hey, can you come comment on my live? And sometimes they'll come comment on your live. So there's a few things that you can do to get more engagement on your live. 1, consistency. 2, announce it in advance. 3, give it a really catchy title. 4, do silly things on the live just a little bit, or let your kids take care of doing the silly stuff for you. I've had a couple times where, you know, my kids have thrown all kinds of random things at me. Don't know if you remember, my kids used to throw dragons at me while I was doing my lives. I have now hidden all of the dragons and almost completely hidden all the headbands. And I say that and I'm looking frantically around my office to try to make sure that they can't find it because my son comes home from boarding school next week. But hopefully I can hide the headbands before he gets home next week because we're using the headbands on the seals, not on the humans right now. What about tagging people? Tagging people is super duper important. If you're doing it in an authentic kind of way, if it's something, hey, I thought you would find this useful, tagging people does improve your reach. Telling stories improves your reach. You know, relating it through your whole process as an entrepreneur also improves your reach. You know, and the dog will still bomb your lives, right? And they absolutely do that. You know, I am not a big, huge person into tagging people necessarily on lives too much. Every once in a while, if I think it's something that they'll find useful, I will even share their, you know, the link with somebody. I'm not a good storyteller yet. So Andrea, I die laughing here at home quite a bit because my husband and I will joke all the time. My husband is a software engineer. He writes network device drivers for a living and debugs network storage stuff. So we're pretty heavy duty geeks here. My husband has an extremely dry, very droll sense of humor. And he's like, yeah, I get it. Only I find myself funny. Let me just tell you, I will sometimes tell really stupid knock-knock jokes or elephant jokes on air or those kinds of things. And I know people are looking at me rolling their eyes. Like I was telling the other night, the joke about, you know, how do you put an elephant in a refrigerator? Because Meg was asking me, how do you eat an elephant? And I said, well, how do you put an elephant in a refrigerator? You open the door, you put the elephant in, you shut the door, and you've got your elephant in the refrigerator. Well, how do you put a giraffe in the refrigerator? Well, most people will say you open the door, you put the giraffe in, and then you shut the door. And the answer is a little bit more complex because you have to open the door, take the elephant out, put the giraffe in, and shut the door. So storytelling comes out of practice and getting really, really comfortable within your skin and practicing it. I am a big believer, if you have not taken any speaking classes, of taking speaking classes. I am a big believer in doing Toastmasters. I did a speaker's boot camp at EMC in my last corporate job. And I got into trouble because I had a lot of fun telling stories that were only partially true, but it didn't matter because we didn't have to tell the story entirely truthful, but they were making us talk about, give you a random topic and you had to speak about it. And you had to speak about it for 5 minutes. And I ended up telling stories about going to Carnival in Brazil as a child and doing all kinds of crazy things. So storytelling, practicing storytelling, getting used to your stories, those are important things for getting engagement up on social media and in your emails. The more authentically you can connect with people, the more real you are with people, the better your social media is going to do. Meg says, I love the elephant in the fridge. I always miss the take out the elephant stuff before I try and shove the giraffe in, right? And you're taking a storytelling course now. I was an improv master in drama, but in real life, it's different. Live is such a weird energy. Yes, live requires practicing. Even if you have to start it with an empty Facebook group and do it, or if you have to make yourself sit there and do it over and over and over again until you get more comfortable with doing lives. And it can be really, really weird. One of the things you could try doing to make lives easier is to get a friend on with you. And like, I could share a link with you and get you on, and you could hide in the background and just kind of cheer me on in the background. And the audience wouldn't necessarily be able to see that second person. Sometimes interviewing people, doing those kinds of things is a really good way to buffer yourself when you're doing lives. Now, the tricky part, if you're going to interview people, is that you still have to interact with the audience and not just focus on the person that you're live with. That's one of the biggest mistakes I think people make, is that they get on and they interview people because it's easier to do than it is to interact with people and understand the lag time between what I speak and what I say. And when you guys hear it, because it's about a 30-second lag time. And you've got to make sure that you are giving people a chance to answer your questions and interact with you on lives. The point of Facebook, point of LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram is engagement. It's about connecting with people, knowing your audience, connecting with that audience, really, really building those relationships. And, deepening those relationships as far as you can possibly do, so that you are, able to find your tribe and your people and do that. Meg says, I have a really private hidden group that I practice in. Make one and let 10 or 15 people, close friends, help you get comfy. Exactly. I have a When Live Speakers private group that's really intended for people who sign up for the When Live program. If you have issues with going live, practice going live in the group. So this is a really good problem. So let's talk about my views are low and my replay numbers are low. So one of the issues you're always going to have is Facebook algorithms are constantly going to be changing. I can't fix that for you. What I can say is, if you practice, if you are animated, if you are excited to be here, if you convey the energy, that will help. If you have sticky topics, that will help. If your video looks good, that will help. If you pre-announce when you're going to go live, that will also help. It's not ever going to be perfect but it gets easier and easier if you follow the steps. You have to have critical mass of people who are watching you or who are able to watch you. So if you don't have people who can watch you, you could be in trouble. And you're passionate. Sometimes I feel too fired up. Yeah. And a lot of people will comment, Andrea, about me when they meet me in person, is that I seem so amped up on camera and I'm so much more energetic. And in person, I'm kind of a much more subdued person. You have to understand, I'm a software engineer, a Spanish degree, and an MBA. So I'm not like literally like always the most animated person in the room. A lot of times I'm the quiet observer. I'm very much an introvert by nature. So people will sometimes comment that I'm a little bit different in person, but that it's actually more calming to be around me in person because I'm not like on all the time. And that it's kind of, I don't know, soothing to be around me, but I don't know that I necessarily want to be super soothing when I'm doing a live. So being super fired up when you do your lives is a great thing. Being super fired up when you do your posts is a great thing. That energy comes through your posts. People read that energy. And it's important that you have that energy and that emotion in your posts because it gives people something to connect to. It makes it stickier and stickier and stickier. It blows your mind when people have hundreds of people on their lives and you can't get to. So if you're doing lives in a group, it's going to be a little bit harder to get hundreds and hundreds of people on there. If you're doing it in a private group, if you're doing it in a public group or you're on a page, some of that is because people are sharing into other groups. I'll give you the hint that the more you share into other groups, the more likely people are to see it. That is an entire thing. And you need somebody to critique you. Well, let's talk afterwards and I'll be happy to critique you and give you a peek. And give you some tips on what you're doing. It is, it is frustrating. I've always been the girl who has to work 3 times as hard to get attention. But I will tell you, when we are getting near, viral kind of content, a lot of it involves sharing into other groups, sharing into other places, really researching the audience, knowing who the audience is, and reaching out to them to really build that momentum. You have to interact as your page. People have to know who your page is and do those kinds of things. And Meg says, Andrea, ask your friends and fans to share your lives, pre-arrange with them. You can do this. Yeah. Getting friends and fans to pre-arrange and pre-share your lives and comment on things is going to help. If you can develop a girl posse or a friend posse of entrepreneurs who can help you comment on posts, that helps a ton. One of the things that I do for my clients, that I do for my friends, is if you have something, I'm happy to go comment on it and react to it and do all the things. Like, comment, and share on other people's posts. The more you like and comment and share on their posts, the more they're going to do it on yours too. It's one of those things where the more you do, the more they're going to do. So anywho, I hope that really helps. Yeah. So here's an interesting thing. I think that's the interesting part. I've always been a person to stand out. I was on a game show, picked out of thousands of people, but on the online space, you feel invisible. So in the online space, she who talks loudest, most often, most passionately, and most creatively, most flamboyantly is the one who gets the most attention. The more you put yourself out there, the more flamboyant you are, the more visible you are, the more often you do it, the better it's going to do. And you can honestly say, I do sell, even if it's 1 or 2 people on your life. There you go. And huge numbers of people on your live are great, but if they're not buying, it's not worth anything. So honestly, I'd rather take the 1 or 2 that are buying from me than having thousands that aren't. At the end of the day, I make this comment kind of facetiously to clients. And sometimes they don't think it's nearly as funny as I do. But I will tell you all day long, and most sincerely, you can't eat followers. You really cannot eat followers. So having 1,000 people on your live, you know, or 500 people on your live, or whatever on your live, doesn't do you a hill of beans worth of good if they aren't buying your stuff. Because you can have all the fans in the universe, but if that's not converting to sales, it's not worth anything. It's just a frustration and a nuisance. So you have to figure out if your messaging and your targeting is on. And if your messaging and your targeting is on and you're getting sales, that's pretty cool. Just keep doing it. Lather, rinse, repeat. Focus on consistency. Keep your messaging going and do it. Yeah, I want to have more engagement. You need that to sustain my energy. Otherwise, I'm talking to a void. Yeah, absolutely. And that is true. And that's that consistency piece for you. You know, by your own admission, consistency is a struggle with 4 kids. I get it. And I don't sell every time either. I find it kind of crazy that some people do. But you know, it doesn't hurt you to get on there and put the content out there and have it lead down your funnel somehow each time. So if you'd like me to take a look at your social media, and we can talk about what we could maybe do to help you with it, I'd love to chat. Any hoodles, I hope you have a great night. Take care, y'all. Blessings. And please let me know how I can support you with growing your business from the marketing side. Thanks, guys. Blessings. Good night.